Welcome to Nkanizatu, the pod that tells indigenous stories every day, the platform that tells you what's good and what's odd for young people and elderly alike in the areas of art, history, and culture preservation. And now your host, Rinah Kasongo.
Hello and welcome to the Nkanizatu podcast, where we bring you enlightening and inspiring conversations around African arts, history, and culture. Today's episode is a very exclusive one where we get to have an insight into the lives of refugees, or rather displaced people within the African continent, specifically somebody that moved from Rwanda to Zambia many years ago. Also joining me on this panel, I am going to be having Mimi, who wrote a book about the life of refugee women in Lusaka, as well as one of displaced people who is going to share more about their experiences. I'm also going to be joined by Caritas Czech Republic in Zambia representative Grace, who is the social services officer. All this is in order for us to just understand what life is like as a refugee, but most importantly, these are our social stories. Come on, we're in for a ride. Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. For the sake of our conversation, let's start with briefly share with us your name and your background.
My name is Munukayumbwa Mwiya. I am Namibian by birth, but I am also Zambian.
I still don't understand how you are Zambian and Namibian.
I come from a border town, and I think people at borders are always moving. So I'm Namibian and Zambian. Yeah.
You may need to say that again so that we are able to get that.
Which part?
The part where you just start by telling us your background.
Yes, I'm Namibian by birth, but I'm also Zambian. My maternal grandmother actually was Zambian. And yes, some 2 years ago, I came to Lusaka to try and document the stories of the Guras women. So I did that, and now we have a book.
Which I'm very excited about. So maybe you've written this book, Lusaka Urban Refugee Women Stories, which we're going to understand a little bit more. But for now, we have another lady on the panel today. Madam, please, you may introduce yourself for the sake of our audience.
Thank you. I'm Godeberth Nyiravumera.
Godeberth?
Yes, Nyiravumera from Rwanda.
You know, it sounds very French. So I was asking you earlier to say, what's the shorter version of it? Because it's the one I would need to speak.
French name Godeberth.
Godeberth.
Yes.
Is there a shorter version of the name?
Maybe you can say Godeberth.
Godeberth?
Yes.
I'll try. So we're joined by Godeberth.
Yes.
Interesting. So Godeberth, you mentioned that you're from Rwanda.
Yes.
I understand that you came in Zambia based on very, very difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Are you able to share really what led to you coming to Zambia, and maybe just share with us a little bit of what transpired back then that led you to come to Zambia?
In Rwanda, there was a war. So I ran away from that war. Yes. My hometown was near the border from Uganda. Yeah. So I ran away since 1991. Yes. That the day we left our hometown, 1991. Yes.
So good to have you in Zambia. We don't want to go into the details of that really, but we'll get back to that in a moment for you to just get to help us understand how it has been living in Zambia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mimi, you wrote this book,
Yes, ma'am.
Lusaka Urban Refugee Women's Stories. What inspired this publication?
I have a friend, Lucy. She works for Caritas Czech Republic, and in 2018, I was here on a personal trip, and in a conversation, she spoke about this amazing association, the Great Lakes region Women's Association of Zambia, and the incredible work they're doing, but also how they're looking for land to farm foods that they used to farm back in their home countries. So the initial fascination for me was the connection of food to home, right? How you're in another country and you're craving plantain or cassava. So that was my curiosity really, and so I told Lucy, I want to hear these women's stories. And so in 2021 I came and I heard these women's stories, and what started off as a curiosity about food at home turned into just learning about their struggles really and their resilience and just the bravery it takes to run away from what you know and try to make home in another country.
Speaking of food, I like food.
Me too.
So, Godeberth, since you came to Zambia, how did you get to adapt to having to get to eat nishima in place of what would Rwandanese normally eat in back home, and how did you have to adjust to the Zambian food? Was it that you had to bring some plantains in your bag? I don't know, I'm joking, but how was it like when you came here in terms of adjusting to food?
I don't know if my English will allow me, but the food from our hometown, especially potatoes and beans, sweet potatoes, cassava and beans, bananas and beans, and fresh beans and peas. We had also sorghum and even maize in Shima. We used to make in Shima at home. Yes.
Did you used to make it the same way that we make it here, or it's different?
No, it's a little bit different, but the taste here is the same.
I had no idea.
Oh, there is Nshima even in our homeland. We used to plant a lot of maize. Yes. But here we found in Zambia also there is Nshima, so we feel free, maybe like we are at home, and we found the Zambian, they are good people.
I was actually getting to that. Some Zambians
They are nice. They are nice.
Okay.
Yes.
What's been the interesting thing that you've discovered about Zambians generally, like in terms of the people? How are they similar to the people back home?
Zambian, they are very caring. Somebody who came to them, yeah, they care so much about others. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, I hope you're not just saying it for the sake of the camera.
No. It's true.
Okay.
They are nice people. I don't know how to say. My English is poor. Forgive me.
I was sharing with you before that English is not our language. It came about because of the white man.
Okay.
So even if we're speaking English because for many people to listen to it, but really, so long as you're just able to speak the normal words, it should be fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So worry not about the English. It sounded good so far.
Oh.
Mimi, getting back to you, during the process of writing this book, I understand you were inspired by their stories, the stories of refugees. What were some of the challenges you faced as a storyteller and also just as an author in just putting these stories together?
I think I had the easy job, really. The people with the hardest work were the women, and I'm so grateful that they relived their traumatic experiences for me, retold the story, which was not an easy thing to do. It was emotional. It was an emotional roller coaster, but I had the easy part.
By easy part, what do you mean?
All I had to do was listen and record. They had to go back in time to a time that was not a happy period for them. And I'm truly, truly grateful that they did so graciously. They accommodated me so easily and they indulged me greatly. They didn't have to, but they did. And it was just an honor to be able to put this together. It's just a big, big honor for me. Just so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful to Caritas Czech Republic, to UNHCR, because it's just a dream come true for me.
Nice. I can sense the passion. We've been having a bit of chit chat here and there about the book, and I can sense that you're really passionate about these stories. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
So you're just joining us.
Yes.
For the sake of our audience, could you briefly just share with us who you are, your background, what you do, and why you are here?
Okay. I'm the project coordinator for the Urban Refugee Project, Lusaka, under Caritas Czech Republic. So we support UNHCR in ensuring that refugees get an education as well as support them in livelihoods. So yes, so the Growers Women, it's an initiative of refugee women who are trying to make themselves self-reliant by bringing in ideas from their countries of origin. So as Caritas, we come in to just help them on how to improve their skills, how to ensure that their skills are a source of livelihood. So one may have a skill, but then they may not know how to turn that into a livelihood. So as Caritas, we basically provide business training for them and just life skills so that they're able to navigate life within Zambia. Of course, there are challenges, but with the training and their knowledge, they're able to sustain themselves.
Interesting. I was getting to the part where, because you are representing Caritas, yeah, I would also like to hear from you specifically in line with your job position, or rather the work that you do with Caritas. What is it like, maybe on a weekly basis or a daily basis, in the process of just ensuring that you are there for the displaced people?
Yeah, so on a daily basis, you're dealing with people that are looking for school places for their children. You're dealing with women that want to feed their children and have no means. So we have to navigate between the little resources that we have and what we're able to do for them. So we try our best with what is there. We're happy now that the government has introduced free education, and the refugees are party to it. Yeah, so they're able now to get places in government schools. So it has made our work a little easier, because it wasn't easy paying for tuition fees because of limited resources. So we're only able to pay for only a few of them. So now with the free education, we've reached out to the Ministry of Education through the schools that are within the localities where we are operational, to just bring awareness to them that we have refugees within our communities and their children also require an education. So we're working with them. I must say that the schools have responded very well. So we have quite a good number of children that are now enrolled in government schools. And in terms of livelihoods, we've offered business training for quite some time now. And some of them are doing well, others are lagging behind, but generally people are picking up. Last year, we did have quite a good number that invested in farming. Unfortunately, due to the drought, most of them have suffered a setback. So with UNHCR and other partners, we're trying to see how we can mitigate that. Yeah, so that's about what we do.
That's quite a lot.
It is, yes.
And very commendable, I must say, that you as Caritas are able to just, ensure that people are well taken care of. And by taking care of, not just, I think in all spheres, especially the income aspect,
Yes.
where you just provide opportunities where they can be able to sustain themselves. Godeberth. Is it Godeberth? I am not getting it right.
Godeberth.
Godeberth.
Yes.
Wow, the Zambian in me. The Zambian in me is failing the French. I understand that from the time you came, you've had to adjust. And I was asking also that in terms of family, the time that you came to Zambia, were you at the time a mother, or you became a mother when you came to Zambia?
I became a mother on the way. Yes.
Okay. I was getting to the part where, because you are a mother, how has it been like having to raise children that are biologically Rwandanese, but living in Zambia? How has it been like for the children?
First, it was difficult because the children at school, they met a lot of challenges because of calling them foreigners. Yeah. So, but little by bit, they managed to understand, and as we explained them, so they use for it.
And in terms of language, have they started to speak in your home language, or they speak the Zambian languages? Which ones did you emphasize with where?
My children, all of them born here. Yeah.
They also speak French.
No, they speak English and the Nyanja, Bemba.
So they're Zambian.
They are not according to law.
The most.
Yeah.
Speaking of law, Grace, how is the process like when we have people that are displaced and then they come to Zambia? How is the process like in terms of identifying them as a refugee and things like that? Yeah.
Okay, so at entry points, depending on where they enter from, at entry points, there are safe spaces. So it's just an issue of inquiring. So if they inquire, they'll be directed. So at entry points, there are places where they can meet immigration, so they can just declare. So, but then there's some that they don't stop at the entry points. They'll come and sort of look for help whilst they're in Lusaka. So if one gets to Lusaka, they probably ask around because there are a good number of them now. So they're directed to Commissioner for Refugees, or they'll be directed to Makeni. If they're within the communities, they reach out to our outreach offices. We call them outreach centers, yes. So when they go there, they'll be referred to Commissioner for Refugees. So initially, when they go there, they'll be given an asylum certificate, and then they'll be afforded an opportunity to interview. So they will share their stories, because a refugee has to, it's a well-founded fear why they left their country. So it has to be well established that indeed there's a well-founded fear of persecution or war. So once that interview is done, there's a whole process. There's a committee that sits, yes, and a refugee status is given or denied. Yeah, so once they are given the refugee status, they are directed on whether they'll be in Lusaka as an urban refugee or they will have to move to the settlements, and they'll be told which settlements to go to. And transport is provided. They are not just told go to this settlement. Transport is arranged for them through the office of the refugee officer. They arrange that for them, so the dates are communicated to them and they move on that side. So as long as one declares, it's okay. The challenge is when they don't declare, because once immigration arrests them, it becomes a whole different process to try and get them out. But help is there if they ask the correct people on where to go up, yeah, and how to go about it.
You really have this at the back of your mind. I'm just like, yo, are there manuals to read these things? Or
There's a lot to read. I've been on the refugee project for the past 6 years. This is my 7th year. So also it's an issue of passion, because you're not going to do your work properly if it's just work as usual. You have to understand. So like for me, when I started, I was interested on why most refugees I interacted with wanted resettlement. So I was wondering, you're already here, why do you want to leave? So yes, then there were other aspects of the law. They're trying to do this. Zambia is welcoming, but with a few restrictions here and there. So sometimes it becomes a bit difficult to maneuver around the law. But working together, we found ways of navigating the law without breaking it, but then still surviving.
okay,
Yeah.
hold your thought around that. I'll
Yeah.
get back to it. So coming back to you, Mimi, because I'm a lover of stories, I understand that there are some poems in here, right?
There is one poem.
Are you able to read for us a bit on that?
Master read the poem.
Oh, you're able to, you mastered it?
No. I'd rather read one of the stories. If that's
Whichever,
okay.
yes. I just want a
It's
story
called a
here.
poem if it helps you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to look at one of the the cameras, so that someone watching can have a feel of Mimi right now.
Okay. In the book, some of the women used pseudonyms. They didn't want their real names used, but some of them used their real names. Odile uses her real name, so I'll read her story. In her poem Home, Warsan Shire has lines that say, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only leave home when home won't let you stay." As I talk to Odile, that line just won't leave my head. Because throughout the interview, Odile keeps coming back to the fact that people don't seem to realize that refugees do not have a choice but to leave their home countries. They stay in other countries because they cannot go back. She keeps coming back to the fact that refugees are not lazy people waiting for handouts. They are desperate people who just want the chance to make a life elsewhere because they couldn't stay at home. Odile's parents left Burundi for Rwanda in 1972. She was born in Rwanda 6 years later. They stayed in Rwanda until President Dandaye was elected Burundi's first Hutu president, and the family felt it was safe to go back to Burundi. When President Dandaye was killed just a couple of months into his presidency, however, they were forced to flee again. They fled to Congo DRC. Odile's parents were killed while fleeing, leaving her with an elder sister. She and her sister lived from camp to camp in Congo, and Odile kept busy by keeping the children in the camps busy. She taught the children some French, some mathematics, and played games with them. She was eventually hired by Food for the Hungry International, FHI, which was one of the organizations providing aid in the camps. Odile was a supervisor for one of the fostering teams that helped place orphans and vulnerable children in foster homes. While on that job, she met her husband, who was part of a reunification team. They got married in July 1995. They had their first child in July 1999. And when he was just 3 months old, there was a war outbreak in Congo, meaning they had to flee again. Due to the nature of their jobs, Odile and her husband had been in different camps when the war broke out, so they fled in different directions, and neither knew where the other was. Odile speaks English, French, some Swahili, Vemba, Nyanja, and Lingala. This has worked to her advantage and helped her find odd jobs, which was how she made ends meet until 2000, when she and her husband were reunited. She found out through the Red Cross Society that he was in Brazzaville, Congo Brazzaville. Through fortune and fate, Odile and her husband eventually found themselves and each other again in Zambia. Odile's face lights up when she talks about their new beginning in Zambia. It felt so good to sleep. I'm going to cry.
Come on. Please tell us. Yeah. Yeah.
It felt so good to sleep and not be woken by the sound of gunshots. To sleep knowing I would definitely wake up alive the next day.
Can I read that? And so it reads. It felt so good to sleep and not be woken by the sound of gunshots. To sleep knowing I would definitely wake up alive the next day. And beans, I was so happy when I ate beans here in the Zambia. It was like a miracle. It had not been so long since I had a proper meal. And this is a very emotional story. I didn't plan to cry.
You see.
And I know you didn't plan to cry. It's just the uniqueness of life experiences where someone is able to delight in the little things, like eating beans and waking up and not hearing gunshots. It's just making me realize that these are certain things that perhaps sometimes we take for granted, say, well, no, life will always be there. I will wake up when the sun rises in 1 month. Very emotional, touching, and also inspiring. The resilience of our people in, still living and looking forward to better days ahead. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Awesome. So now, there's been this thing, Godeberth, where some people in Zambia, I've heard a few people put it to say, Why is it that foreigners seem to have more opportunities or better opportunities than us? Sometimes people get sentimental like that. Have you ever experienced a situation where you are denied certain opportunities because you're Zambian, because of the people that you found in that space? Like, you don't have to mention the names, but have you ever found a situation where you're segregated with accessing certain opportunities because you're not Zambian?
Yeah, but not in the community of Zambia, in certain offices. Yeah, in the offices where we get LEG, the national legis,
The NRC.
NRC. Yeah, it's where my son went crazy. Went crazy when he gave him a stroke of 3, and he cried. Why you give me a stroke of 3? I'm not a foreigner. So, but they sit and tell him. So he get a stroke of 3, but until now he does not understand why he get a stroke of 3, not 1. Yes, but otherwise, no. To the hospital, it's normal to me. Maybe at school, children sometimes they face some challenges when they ask where you come from. So they used to be not well because where they are.
Speaking of stroke 3, I know, Grace, you have more knowledge about this. What is the difference in terms of one acquiring an NRC? How is it different from someone when they're a refugee and when they're just Zambian?
Yeah, so stroke 3, I'm not very conversant, but stroke 3 is for foreigners. And so there's a bit of a mismatch in the law. So the Immigration and Deportation Act doesn't speak explicitly to refugees. It just says non-nationals. So that's where the issue comes in. Whilst the Refugee Act recognizes the presence of refugees in Zambia, the Immigration and Deportation is sort of so that's a whole lot of law that needs to be worked on. But so if a refugee, maybe for the purposes of acquiring a passport, requires an NRC, they will still be given stroke 3 just because they're non-nationals. That's according to my knowledge. Not that is ultimate truth, but that's what I know. Yeah. But also, refugees are able to acquire a passport through the Office of the Commissioner. I'm not sure about the entire process, but they do get passports when they need them. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that was just a by the way thing. But
Yeah.
are you able to add more on that?
Yeah, it's a refugee passport, not a Zambian passport.
Yes, a refugee passport. That's why I said refugees are able to acquire passports.
Yes. And sometimes when the immigration came, sometimes they took you in the prison, then the children suffer the consequence, staying home alone because of papers.
So those are experiences that you've had.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. The way back, my husband was taken at the prison for 2 weeks because of he forget his employment documents at home. Yeah.
That is quite some experience.
Yeah.
Now, Grace, there was I was having a conversation with Martina, I think last week, and she quickly corrected me that there's a difference between an immigrant and a refugee.
Yes.
Can you please highlight more on that?
So an immigrant is like they choose to move. You choose to move to a different country. Refugees don't choose. Actually, if you read through the book, you'll notice that as I started running, they were not going to Zambia. They were just running to find safety. So they don't choose. They're just running away. There's fire here. I need to move where there's no fire. So they are moving. As opposed to immigrants, especially economic immigrants, it's like, oh, in Zambia there are opportunities here and there. So let me move to Zambia so that I can maximize on that. So there's a difference. So a refugee will flee not by choice. They're forced to flee. But then somebody else will pack their bags and say, I'm moving to Zambia. I found a job there. Let me, yeah. So there's a difference.
You know, talking of Rwandanese, this again is a conversation I've come across where it seems like, and I'm going a bit off, but it seems like Rwandanese have had, they are able to easily, not easily, but they have these multiple stores in our communities and they seem to be thriving. And so some people on social media have come off to say, why is it that the foreigners are well established and whatnot? In your opinion, why is that the case? Like, what is it that the Rwandanese have a special trait of business resilience? Like, what is going on? Because I know it has been nudging some people to say, why is it that a lot of our stores in our communities are owned by Rwandanese and things like that? Yeah.
Interestingly, for most of them, it's not actually a choice. They don't really choose to have a grocery store because these are skilled people. You'll be surprised that most of them are actually medical personnel. So it's an issue of if I try to utilize my skill here, what are the odds? So grocery is seemingly an easier way of sustaining themselves. And it may seem like they're thriving. They basically don't have a choice. I need to do this for me to survive. For Zambians, it's more like you have options. When you're in your home, you have options. Yeah. So yeah. So for Zambians, it's like they have more options. If I lost my job today, I'll call my mother or I'll call somebody that I know and they'll come in for me. For a refugee, for most of them, some of them are fortunate enough, they move here as a family. For some, the only family that they'll have is a fellow Rwandese person, is a fellow Burundian. They basically come alone. So what can I do? So you navigate because also as much as organizations would want to engage refugees in terms of offering them employment, their requirements, a refugee still requires a work permit for them to work. It's not cheap and they have to renew it every 2 or 3 years. So and ideally the employer is supposed to sort of foot that bill. So sometimes you find that the employee is unable, so they can't continue because the employer doesn't want to be caught in an illegality, but this person needs to work. So the one which is seemingly easier for them to do is grocery business. And they simply just work hard. It's not an issue of they mastered it, or it's an issue of I don't have a choice. This is what I need to do for me to survive. For most of them, it's like that.
I really didn't know that, you know. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Mimi, with you writing this book,
Yeah.
I know you are very passionate about these stories. I could tell. I can tell even just now. What is your hope for the future as you highlight such stories?
Jeez. As my friend Fongani earlier, I said to him, it's nice to see you. And he said back, it's nice to be seen. I think that's all anyone wants, to be seen. And, you know, I work with women a lot. I work with rural women back home. And again, I was telling, I think, Debbie, that when we have our women's workshops, after lunch break, there'll be like 5 minutes where they're doing a play activity or they're singing or they're dancing. And you get a glimpse of these women, just women. They're not mothers or grandmothers or community activists. They're just women, playful women. And it's such a beautiful sight to behold. It is not a privilege many women get. Refugee women, I can't even begin to imagine the fragment of what they've gone through. But from this, I can tell the priority is survival. For me, I'm so happy for those that I hear that for a little bit, they can be seen. One, their stories can be heard, but they can just be seen as women, not as refugees, not as women on the run, just as women who are trying to survive. Which, when you think about it, is all of humanity. We are all just trying to get by in whatever way we can. And it's what they've been doing, and I just wanted to bring that out.
It's nice to be seen.
It's very nice to be seen.
I'm avoiding saying her name. Godeberth. Godeberth. Am I almost there? Godeberth.
Yes.
Yes, you are almost there.
Almost there. Thank you. Godeberth. I understand you have been closely interacting with Caritas Czech Republic. What impact has they made towards you, and also the UNHCR and all partnering organizations to just, bettering your livelihood?
Like, since from Rwanda, UNHCR used to help us, even Caritas was there, and Red Cross. Then when you enter in Zambia, they came and to help us. And the Caritas was there. We met Caritas here in town. You wasn't there.
Sorry?
In the 1998.
No. Oh. Yeah. I came on board in 2017.
Okay. Yeah. UNHCR was there to help us, like to settle. Before they lent a house for us, yes, and give us some food, but they stopped. Yes, so now we live ourselves. Maybe I can say.
By stopping, you mean you are now able to get by on your own?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't support this time like they were came from back home.
All right. That's interesting. Okay. Grace, I understand today is World Refugee Day. This takes place on the 20th of June. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, is it just Zambia celebrating this, or I mentioned World Refugee Day, but something that every country.
It's a global event. It's UNHCR, so it's a global event. Everywhere where UNHCR has presence, was celebrating World Refugee Day. So it's not just in Zambia. Yeah.
I think we have a mic. Are you able to? Anyway, maybe we don't need it. It's fine.
I don't like microphones.
Oh, she doesn't like microphones. I love Grace's honesty.
I think I'm loud enough.
Okay.
Maybe Godeberth could use a microphone. Okay.
All right, cool. So we're talking about World Refugee Day, yeah? Globally, this is recognized as a day that we get to highlight issues to do with refugees and celebrate the resilience of our people. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in previous years, what are some of the things that Caritas has been doing, and perhaps what is your hope for the future, even as we commemorate World Refugee Day?
I want to speak to the theme, but I've forgotten some of the words. But it's empowering refugees with skills so that they become self-reliant. That's my interpretation of it. So, like she mentioned, previously they would be given food rations at some point, but now the strategy has shifted to empowerment, because you can't manage to give handouts all the time because you're getting from somewhere and giving, so you can't just be getting. At some point it gets depleted. So, like I said before, refugees are skilled people. And also like what was from the story that Mimi tried to read, where they're not lazy people, they're willing to work. So now, and also with what I said, it's like the law says one thing and people need to survive. So I'll give an example. For someone who has a small shop in Lusaka, they still require a business permit for them to operate. It's quite expensive. So working with UNHCR as well as the government, we're still pushing so that refugees would have it easy instead of getting the same permits as other immigrants. Let it be different for them. It's still a work in progress, but I'll tell you, from the time I started in 2017, a lot has improved. Yeah, like things are improving. It's a lot because there's a politics, there's a government processes. It's not easy to change the law, but at least we're making progress. Especially, we're hoping that with the new national refugee policy now, things can get better. Yes, because like she said, they're able to go to the hospitals. They're not treated differently. They have access to health facilities. They have access to schools. Yes, without there's still challenges like what she said earlier about children being bullied, their names and whatnot. We've had incidences where somebody changed their name just to fit in. So we're bringing awareness even to like officials in government, because you will understand that some people, even though they work in the government space, they do not know the difference between a refugee and a foreigner. And so it's just an issue of bringing awareness, because I'll tell you something that we've achieved. Well, as we started, when we're changing to digital payments, most refugees didn't have SIM cards registered in their names because they were not accepting the white cards, the refugee cards. But now a refugee is able to register. A refugee is able to register a SIM card in their own name on MTN and on Airtel. So we're making progress. They're able to have bank accounts now. They can go to Pakra. It's a lot, but we're getting there slowly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Godeberth, have I gotten it right? Wow, I'm speaking French. Godeberth, do you first of all intend on going back to Rwanda, or you have settled in Zambia?
Maybe let me speak in Nyanja, maybe.
Yes, you may use Nyanja. Me, I can't speak Nyanja. I'm from Luapula.
Grace,
I'll translate.
Grace will translate.
I that was a translator.
Yeah.
Translated these interviews.
I'm from Luapula, so Nyanja. Okay, please use Nyanja.
The question again.
The question is, do you wish to go back to Rwanda, or you have settled in Zambia?
Yeah, and nifu nisisa. Nifuna maningi kuti ningabwerere. I want. But there are still problems there. Yes.
Okay. Are those problems that you're able to share? Like, what's the most challenging part about having to go back?
Okay. Kwamene tunachokera ku Rwanda Nkondo nali
All right.
So Nkondo Petna Tava, it's like ku country kwatu kulima mitungu zibiri. Then mitungu zibiri, so mutundu uja wamene ururinga. I can't manage.
Thank you. We'll leave it at that,
I can translate.
Sure.
Yes, so she's saying that she would love to go back to her home country. It's something that she would really love to do, but unfortunately, the problems that made her flee are still there, and so she's unable to go back. But if it was better, she would go back.
Thank you. In church, they would say amen. All right. Mimi, your final remarks as we conclude this interesting but really emotional conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. First, I see the gang is here. The rest of the women are here. I love you guys so much. I'm so happy to see you again. The real heroes. The real heroes. I want to thank Grace. She was with me on every one of the interviews. She translated, she drove. I liked to have Nshima and Kapenta after the interviews. She would take me to all the shoddy places for Nshima and Kapenta. Lucy and Martina are not here, but I want to thank Lucy and Martina and the rest of the Caritas Czech team in the back. Gang, thank you. They are family now. Caritas Czech Republic is family. I'm glad UNHCR is here. I'm truly, truly grateful. Again, it was a crazy thing. I have a niece here who will tell you I'm the crazy person of the family. I have crazy ideas. This was a crazy idea. I never imagined anything would come of it. Caritas Czech Republic and UNHCR have made a dream come true. For these women's stories to be written, for them to be shared, for us to be here celebrating World Refugee Day together. It's an amazing thing, and I'm just so grateful to all of you who came out. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Whenever Mimi speaks, I'm avoiding not crying. Because she has these really emotions, and they're just telling me how passionate she is about these stories, but also the women behind the stories. Grace, what is your hope for the Zambian community and the African continent at large, and perhaps globally? How can we ensure that we are able to support in the slightest way, support refugees and displaced people?
Yeah. So earlier this morning, I had an interview on TV. I said, everyone is a potential refugee. You don't choose to become a refugee, you are forced to become one. So, because they do not choose, can we be a bit more kind to them? The law is meant to guide us. So, can we have one that is more encompassing? Somebody moves from fire, they found a safe place, and then we still are trying to squeeze them. Can we at least be kind to them? Can we help them with soft hands so that at least they can make something good out of themselves? So I've learned quite a lot from doing this work and just from the women, because at the end of the day, I look at them as my mothers. I have children myself, and I just imagine where you have to run through a bush in the night. And one of the women shared that at some point they had to feed their child mud because that's the only thing that was available. So they've made it here. So now I have a responsibility to make it better for them. So I may not be able to do all I want because we have limited resources, we have bureaucracies that we need to follow and procedures and whatnot. But I try my best to do what I can to make it better for them. So yeah, that's my conclusion.
Thank you for sharing that. Very, very touching. Godeberth, is there anything you would wish to say as we conclude this conversation?
I wish to thank you.
You guys have a very strong bond. Are you sure you're not from the same village?
We're homies now.
Yeah, ti vanagwira ntchito kuti bazive ma stories yathu, bazive where we went through. Bazive ma pains yathu, vamene ma difficulties yeti kumana nayo. So banashita bwino kuti ndiye vanatuita kuti tinkare open for the first time. Rwandanese for the first time stands on Karako open vija because our stories, yeah, even now our stories is not good enough to talk. That's why sometimes if you want to share our stories, you feel crying only. Yeah. So, but the others understand us, like Grace, like others, like Madam Susan and the others. Yes. Yeah. I thank you, but I thank you, all of you, for listening our stories and get our books. That is our book.
It's your book.
Yes. And we hope you enjoy our stories there. And you continue to support us as a women refugee from Great Lakes.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Grace, were you able to pick the first part of what she said for the sake of somebody that is not able to understand Nyanja?
She's saying she's grateful that they were given an opportunity to share their stories. She says it's not easy to share their stories because most of the times it still hits home and they tend to cry about it. But it was nice to have someone interested in knowing about their life, their pain, and also their small wins that they've achieved. Yeah. So she's saying thank you to Mimi, and she's saying thank you to NHCR. She's saying that she's happy to have a few people that are able to understand their story and really like try to make things better for them. Yeah.
Thank you. Godeberth, you are really a strong woman.
Thank
I
you.
commend you for sharing this story. It wasn't easy, but you brought it out, and I'm really happy that you did,
Thank
so
you.
that we are able to inspire many other people.
Thank you.
This is what the Nkaniza podcast does. We bring to you interesting, enlightening, inspirational, and in this case, emotional conversations. Today, we have had the privilege of listening to people that have experienced some traumatic moments in their lives. They have been bold enough to share with us what it is like being a displaced person, but not being able to give up. What has touched me the most is that sometimes we take life very, very, very trivial. You know, we take it lightly, say, okay, the sun is still going to come up and down and whatnot. But other people are thankful that they're not able to have gunshots ringing in their ears when they've woken up. That is very touching for me. To the audience, do we have any question from anybody? We could pick one or two questions as we conclude this conversation.
We just
Comments. Or any comments, really. Doesn't have to be a question. Comments, anything that you would like to share. The floor is open. We have a mic here. Anybody would like to share anything? Okay. Sure. I have one or two hands.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the work that has been put in. I don't know if you had already talked about it, but or maybe I may have missed it during the time that Mwiya was explaining the whole process. But maybe would you kindly just run through how you discovered Caritas and just what made you, what was the drive behind you just identifying the refugee women? Okay, I'm going to talk to the refugees. And yeah, maybe that's been really in my head as all this has been going on. What really was the drive for her to just pick on the refugees? I mean, so many people around, you know, with a lot of challenges that problems. We've already heard that they are also working with in menstrual hygiene and other issues. So what was the drive towards picking the women specifically?
So,
Take
Mimi,
the question.
perhaps we could have another question.
Yeah,
Before we
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Actually, for me, it's not a question, but of a very compliment for this very good initiative, because there is a lot of untold story of this world, which can help even more stakeholders, particularly government counterparts, to improve the welfare of the refugee. So, for my benefit, this is well good. And I believe before the end of this event, you'll be able to tell us how you get the book. Because personally, I'm very interested to read the story, because I've been listening to Sarah for 15 years. But there are some stories I never heard about those stories. So I'll be able to at least to read to know exactly how our fellow sisters are being gone through. So that's one of the problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, you missed the story, but I'll repeat it. I have a good friend, Lucy. She works for Caritas Czech Republic, and in 2018, I was in Lusaka on a personal visit, and Lucy told me about this association of these women who want to farm food here in Zambia that they used to farm in their home countries. And so I learned then about the Great Lakes Refugee Women's Association of Zambia, which is how I identified. I was fascinated as why are they in Zambia wanting to eat cassava and plantain. And so that's how they were identified, and that's how I got the story.
Thank you, Mimi.
With regard to getting the book, it's a sensitive issue that I will actually leave to Caritas and UNHCR because as much as we want to get the stories out, we also have to consider the privacy and safety of the women. So we're still working on the kinks.
Awesome. So this book is titled Lusaka Urban Refugee Women's Stories, and today is its official launch, authored by Mimi, whom I am yet to get her full name. Well, I read it, but it seems a bit foreign, so I stuck
It's a
to
Lozi
Mimi.
name, making it very Zambian. It's a deep Lozi name.
So I stuck to Mimi. Mimi is the author of this book, and it shares incredible stories of these women. Well, that is it on the Nkani Zatu podcast. We have been highlighting this really emotional conversation. I must say it's been one of the most difficult conversations for me because these are really, really real life stories. However, this is what Nkani Zatu aims to do. We highlight cultural, inspirational arts in historic conversations, and we have been interacting with three amazing, bold ladies. Thank you so much. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube and audio streaming platforms. Have a lovely afternoon, evening, night, whatever time that you're going to be watching this podcast. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Nkani Zatu, the pod that tells indigenous stories every day, the platform that tells you what's God and what's odd for young people and elderly alike in the areas of art, history, and culture preservation. And now your host, Rinah Kasongo.